are the reason. So many of us think it's someone else's fault. The job doesn't pay me enough. My partner spends too much money. The kids cost so much money. Everything is so expensive. But in reality, it's how you relate to money. And this is why we date money, because when we date money, we sit down with it once a week and we know exactly where it's going. We know exactly how it's coming in, how it's going out, and exactly how we want to spend it. This is what builds true wealth. And if you want to know more about that, check out the Wealth Accelerator, a 90-day container where we eradicate debt and eliminate financial illiteracy. Build out your financial roadmap, your personalized system, so that money comes in all ways, always. The link to schedule a call is in the show notes. Today, we are going to hear from Suzanne Lydecker, who is an author, speaker, and fierce love architect who builds unshakable women who reclaim their worth and fall in love with their lives. Her memoir, A Woman on Top: My Journey of Self Discovery Through Love and Money, explores love, boundaries, and how net worth shapes romantic relationships. And if
Mm.
you've been following the show for a while, you know how much I love marrying these two topics together. So, welcome, Suzanne. We're so excited to hear from you and your journey. Tell us what it was like before you came to this point in your life. I know we talked pre-show a lot and you'd given me some great information, but tell the audience, the listeners, what were you going through? What was the struggles like for you to want to invest in this memoir that you're going to share with us in a few minutes?
Well, thank you very much, Lisa, for having me, first off. Uh, it was not in my plan to write a book. I'm really good at
Never
math,
is.
and I didn't take English courses in college. I don't know how I got away with that, but I didn't. And it was when I was leaving a boyfriend who I thought I was going to marry, and he was super hot. Ooh, smoking hot. Young, a great athlete, and broker than crap. And I
Mm,
met him post inheriting some money at the age of 47. And for all of you who think that winning the lottery or just inheriting money is the answer to all your dreams, I'm telling you that it comes with its own set of challenges that you have to deal with. Otherwise, the money slips through your fingers.
mhm.
I think we need to backpedal a little bit. When I decided to start writing the book, when he I said to him, as he was slamming his way out of the door when I was 52, I'm going to write a book called A Woman with Means. And he's like, You can't write a book about money. You know nothing about it. Well, he was absolutely right. And I was absolutely wrong because I knew nothing about it.
Mhm.
I wrote my book so many different ways. It took me 11 years to do it. Now, that's perseverance, if nothing else. And I ended up writing it as a memoir. And it really starts, which I think it's important for everyone here listening and everyone on the planet to really look back at the lessons you learned in life as you were growing up around love and money. Who's spending the money? Who's getting the money because they're doing, the right thing so that somebody is paying them to do that? What did your grandparents do? Who worked in your family? Who kept the bills? Like all those things that we, experience as children, we carry
Mhm.
those all into our adult lives. And then,
Mhm.
God forbid, when you figure out how to get together with somebody's your money stuff and their money stuff have to get together and have a talk. And we know from just, I don't think this is a measurable fact, but we have an expression, not tonight, dear. I have a headache because you throw your hands up on your forehead. And we're talking about sex, So some people think that once you get married, sex kind of goes away. In my opinion, people talk less about money than they do about sex.
Mhm.
So those seem to be two areas that it's the last place we want to go with our partners. Money being even more taboo than sex. And I write all about this in the first chapter of my book. Um, I was lucky enough, as I said, to inherit money, and frankly, I'm pretty lucky because I got a lot of other problems, but money doesn't seem to be one of them. I seem to be
Mhm.
able to make money, and so I'm very blessed with that. But as I was saying before, it doesn't necessarily support or you don't necessarily get just emotional stability from that or
Mhm.
ways to I understand a lot of listeners out there are struggling with how to make your financial picture portfolio look better and improve so that you can support your children, so that you can send them to college, so that you can do all these things. And especially as single females, like sometimes you don't have the support of your ex-husband, right? That's just not what's yeah, I'm just turning off the sound on my little thing because it's no. Um, anyway, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. So when you think about your journey and this idea of getting this money, did you squander it or did you invest it or is it something that triggered you to want to start this journey? Sounds like
Well,
the
I
finances was a
actually
pivotal point for you.
yeah, my problem was taking care of men. I did the same thing 3 times expecting different results.
Mhm.
And what I realized looking back on now, it was me that was the problem.
Mhm.
I think you started off this podcast by saying you're getting in your own way.
Yes. That's what
I got
most of our
I got in
problem is.
my own way.
Yeah.
Um, and I constantly was talking about it. I actually financially, I didn't realize it along the way, but I have a property management business and I did quite well with that. And
Mhm.
so I actually quadrupled the money um, in about 14 years, which is unheard of. I work my
Mhm.
ass off and I would prefer to slow down, but that doesn't seem to be happening. Um, but I think the challenge here really is not it's much more of an emotional issue.
Mhm.
And I think for women, there's just a lot going on the planet right now. And
Mhm.
supposedly we're supposed to have it all figured out, and the men are falling behind and they're not going to college, but we're stepping up into our empowerment. And that's all true, but I think that there's just a lot that we still have to deal with as females on the planet because you
Yeah.
got to
Well, let's
remember,
let's
yeah.
go back to yeah, so before you go on that, let's go back to when the boyfriend walked out and said, "You can't write a book about money, you don't know anything about money." Was that a lie that you believed about yourself and it was kind of reaffirmed, or is that something that made you want to go and say, "No, I know all kinds of things about money," and you went and learned about it?
So I'll go back again that the place that I feel that I struggled was not in actually making the money, it was being
Mhm.
emotionally mature enough to have it.
Mhm.
So I had conversation after conversation after conversation, and I guarantee you some of your audience has had the same conversation where they met a man and they fell in love with his potential. And even if you didn't marry him and you fell in love with his potential and then he disappointed you.
Mhm.
So my thing that I did was is that I was always and I happen to pick young ones all the time. I don't know, it's kind of my spiritual curriculum. I was like, "You're too young," and, I don't I did never know whether they were there for the money because all my friends wanted to tell me constantly that they were just there for the money. Why would
Mhm.
anybody else wanna be with me? Well,
Mm,
I
that's
mean, that's a hard pill to swallow.
yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't
Definitely.
make you feel very good about yourself.
I
And
could be jealous on their part too.
before I inherited the money, like I wrote about in the first part of my book, like I didn't consciously get to choose whether I was born in Ross, California, with a father who did well, he did quite well, and then he got Alzheimer's, but he had some of this life insurance policy that actually came due. So I never knew whether there was going to be anything or not. But as parents, you want to do better, so you leave your children some money.
Mhm.
Um, and I think more men have read my book than women, weirdly
Yeah.
enough. And I think that one of the reasons is because as parents, they're trying to figure out what I'm talking about to emotionally prepare daughters. Because you
Mhm.
also have to be emotionally prepared to be successful.
Mhm.
It goes back to what you're talking about again is that, are you getting in your own way? Like,
Hmm.
there's certain things that you have to do emotionally to allow yourself to be successful. And you have to balance your checkbook and do all those things that Lisa is suggesting. Like, I do that all the time. I know exactly where money goes, what it's from, and it gets more complicated the more you have.
Hmm.
But I think it's really, really important for your sense of self-esteem to know exactly what's going on.
Hmm.
That to
What are some
me
of the
is
things that you implemented to help regulate your nervous system to balance out your emotions so that you could be emotionally connected with money and make decisions that were going to help you create true wealth?
well, from my book, I created, well, there's now 4 pillars of responsibility. Um, one of them is taking personal responsibility, and that would say balance your checkbook and know what you're doing, know what's going in, know what's going out, make a plan for your future, do all these amazing things for yourself so that you feel more confident. Number 2 is saying no if it's not a hell yeah. I learned a long time ago just in business, don't say yes to your friends that you'll invest in their business. It never goes well. Never.
Hmm.
I will never invest with another friend who says they have a great deal. I'm sorry, but I don't do business with friends.
Hmm.
Um, saying no to I think you should say yes to as many things as possible. Let's get as clear because we're too busy sitting on our couch not saying yes to everything, especially as single females. But say yes to the things that are in line for you. And
Hmm.
my I guess the thing that changed my life, to answer your question, is I learned not to take things personally.
Hmm.
That was the thing that changed my life from being able to make wise business decisions. In my book, I read about several situations that I got myself into, and because I'm a people pleaser, 2 on
Hmm.
the Enneagram, caretaker, really disgustingly bad. I'm like the best caretaker on the planet. So, I'm like, "Oh, sure, I can accommodate you." Well, that wasn't really serving me. Certainly
Hmm.
what I learned in relationships to do, I carried it over into business. I carried it over into my children. I didn't set very good boundaries with them. Gave them
Hmm.
probably way more than they needed. Really hard for a single mother because you think that you have to make up for the fact that their dad's gone,
Yeah, absolutely.
right?
Definitely try
So,
harder in that
yeah.
aspect.
So not taking things personally has been the number one things that's changed my life. It's allowed me
Hmm.
to be more successful, to be happier, to, like, I don't know, do so much more with my life. And, my last thing, my fourth pillar is be kind. Be as kind as you can to yourself when you're doing these things. And, if you're like me, it's tax season. So I'm having to go through my QuickBooks and look at every line item of everything to make sure they're in the right place because I run a business and can't be writing off things that are not write offable and vice versa.
Hmm.
Um, it's painful. It's a painful project. And I was like, just be kind to yourself. We're going to get through this. We're going to do it. It's going to be great. And do you know, Lisa, I can't tell you because I'm almost at the end of it because I promised the accountant I would get him information by Friday. Now, whether you have an accountant or it doesn't matter, like whatever your goal is, do your taxes. And you know what? I feel so much better, really,
Hmm.
honestly, because I know where everything is. I know where I spent, what I did, where I maybe need to cut back, what I need to do moving forward. So,
And that's really important. I love doing my taxes. I did mine early, already got my refund back, and it's wonderful. When we think about that organization you had mentioned, QuickBooks, having a system in place is so important. So, and every week adding the receipts and showing where your expenditures are and matching that P&L to your bank account, so you know exactly where that money is, and that's key. I know a lot of entrepreneurs out there are like winging it or like, oh yeah, I'll do that later or I'll save up my receipts. It's like, no, let's get into the habit of doing it on a weekly
yeah.
basis, little chunks of time, and it gets to be fun. And what the conversation we have with ourselves is so important. And like you said, be kind, but tell yourself, this is fun. I get to do this. I get to see where my money is going and how my
Yes.
business is growing, or what needs to be improved, what I can, maybe if I need to cut back or if I need to increase something, exactly it's right in front of you on that spreadsheet, on that app, whatever it is that you're using to track your money. So I love that you have that system in place.
Yes.
You had mentioned earlier about the boundaries with the children. I'd like to address that because I know we have lots of listeners out there. I know my clients, and those of you who are listening, when you come join me in the Wealth Accelerator, the first thing we talk about is our my money multiplier system, and how we set aside 10% for giving, saving, and fun money. And the biggest thing that my divorced mompreneurs have with is, can I use my giving towards my kids? Like, are you going
Yes.
to serve your children, or what are we doing here? So tell us what kind of boundaries you set up, because we're all people pleasers. That's one of
Yes.
our traits.
Yeah.
So tell us what kind of boundaries you set up and how that helped you with having that healthy relationship with your kids.
Well, a couple things come to mind. One is give because you want to give without expecting anything in return.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, we could go back to single moms and maybe feel guilty. And then you expect if you give your children this, that they're going to be really nice to you. Yeah, no, they're just not. It doesn't work that way. I was listening to this book the other day. Oh gosh, it was about how to raise men. Notes on How Being a Man by Scott Galloway. And he was talking about how it's our responsibility to be better parents than our children are children to us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so as children, it's our job to do the work, but we don't want to do it in a way where we're expecting anything in return. So
Mm-hmm.
make sure you're not giving from that. And I think that if we go back to if you know your boundaries, you know your QuickBooks, you know however it is that you're managing your money, and you have this much to give over the period of a year, whatever. As soon as you have rules in place for yourself, it's much easier to say no, in my opinion. Once I said, for example, I don't loan money to friends. I don't care how good it looks. It has never come out positively for me. Some of them
Mm-hmm.
have paid me back. Some of them just never paid me back, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, I just not in my wheelhouse anymore. I don't do that. I only give to my children. I said, well, for example, I set this up a long time ago, and you could put any amount on it. It could be $100. You can go, I give each child $100 for Christmas and their birthday. My
Mm-hmm.
kids sometimes stockpile their money, like three things, and they're like, I want a new phone. All right. And I was like, okay, well, that's great. You've picked out what you want, because sometimes as kids get older, their toys get more expensive. So,
Mhm.
they can wait. Or you can give it to them in advance if that's what you want to do. But it made this whole idea of trying to be fair to the children,
Mhm.
and watching, because as young kids, I didn't grow up with a ton of money. I didn't get any money till I was 47, and then I was like, now what the heck do I do?
Right.
And we could go back to inheriting money, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that go, I just want to win the lottery. I just want that inheritance. If you look at the facts about lottery winners,
Mhm.
they no longer know who their friends are. They don't have the skills to be able to invest it well, and most of them lose it within 3 to 5 years. Most
Mhm. Yeah.
lottery winners on any level lose the money within 3 to 5 years, and some of them kill themselves because they
Mhm.
can't handle it. So, inheriting money or winning the lottery is not the answer. That's
Now get
great if
financial literacy first.
exactly. So it's just important to remember you can still have that dream of winning the lottery and buying that boat and new house and then putting it away for your kids' college fund, but it's not going to solve all your problems. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm waiting. I have a TED talk kind of brewing, which I've already wrote, and really it was like your self worth will determine where your net worth goes
Mhm.
to. which I think is what you're saying here to your
Right.
audience,
Yes,
that it's,
absolutely.
your self-worth has to be intact, to take
Hmm.
responsibility for your behaviors, to the reason why my life changed from where it was before is that I was the problem.
Hmm.
I was the one that was, um, not taking responsibility, not setting up clear boundaries. And then for example, let's say you're giving to somebody, doing something, you meet a new boyfriend, you're like, "Oh, he doesn't have any money. I'll take him out to dinner." And then all of a sudden after the 10th time, you're like, "Well, it's not my job to take you out to dinner." Well, set some boundaries first.
Hmm.
Don't go in there and do that. That's what I did. Read my book. Just don't do any of that. Just do what's in the epilogue. Um, so, when you
Have a
ask me,
plan and stick to it.
yeah, what you did, my epilogue just tells you all the things: hire slowly, fire quickly, simplification, stop looking over the fence at everybody else's grass and seeing how green it is when you should be watering your own.
Hmm. Yes. Yep, because it all starts with the person in the mirror. That's the only person that we can
All
change.
starts
That's the
with
only
the person.
person we're responsible for.
It's
Hmm.
such a drag, but that's just the reality.
Well,
And
thank
I
you so much.
know, yes, I know that through the course of my book and what I do a lot of stuff on Instagram and Substack. I write articles and whatnot. Is that this is the key in
Hmm.
all areas of life. I write about the same stuff in work as I do with my children, as I do in my relationships, as I do with my parents.
Yeah. Yes, and what we focus on expands. So when you think about that, well, thank you so much for sharing your journey, your story, your experience. I know our readers, our listeners are going to want to become readers of your book. So tell us, what is the best way for them to connect with you to get a copy of your book?
Well, I have a website, SuzanneLeidecker.com. I think the spelling will be in your show notes because it's a little
Yes.
complicated. You can buy a book through there. You can go directly to Amazon. I've also read an Audible version, which I did myself, which I had to do twice. Wasn't so easy. Um, that is wonderful to listen if you have time. Like I listen to a lot of books because I know it's difficult, especially for those of you that have young children at home, to find a
Hmm.
time to read. So I listen to it in my car. I would love to connect with anybody who wants to connect. I love it, Lisa, that you told me that your audience is extremely engaging and reaches out to you. And one of my big things is helping women to see that we're not the only ones. So if you think your situation is the only one, that something is bad has happened to you, and this is, you need to know that you're not the only one. And that's like, join my tribe, join Lisa's tribe. Don't feel alone and isolated out there.
Hmm.
There are people that understand what it is that you're going through. So
Hmm.
I very much appreciate you having me here.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being on the show. We appreciate listening to you and gleaning the words of wisdom that you had to share. For those of you listening, please, if you know someone who could benefit from this episode, share it with them. Spread the love, spread the joy. And when you think about what is keeping you from hitting your numbers, from making the money that you want to make, from holding on to that money, it's only you. Look in the mirror and start making those changes. It all begins with those thoughts that turn into our feelings, that give us the action, that end with the results that we end up with every single day. Because remember, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it's what you do with it.